Really, Riley?
Really, Riley?
This is the Really Riley podcast.
Well, hello, beloveds. Welcome back to Really Riley, my little corner of the world where I like to talk about all the things under the sun. But today we are having the most anticipated part 2 of maternal mental health with my girl Frand. You guys, thank you for all of the reception that we got on the first episode. Everybody said how helpful it was. Everyone said how much they identified with it. And they were really grateful that we're opening up this conversation even further. So, hi, Fran.
Hi, thanks for having me back.
Absolutely. Like, I'm so excited. And I know that you guys are like, well, where was that? Hey, we said this before. We're both moms. Okay. So we had to figure it out. We had to just kind of get it together, but it's fine because we both have 2 little babies. It's summer. Deal with it. But we left off before kind of talking about so many different things. But the thing that I said that I wanted to touch upon again that was very important to me in my road of motherhood so far was the aspect of boundaries in social media when it comes to pregnancy and postpartum. And Fran, you're the professional here. I'm just the one that talks.
Yeah.
But the aspects that kind of got to me, I'll go down the line.
Mm-hmm.
The first one was postpartum snapback, as they call it.
Snapback
which I roll my
culture.
eyes at that too.
Yeah, there's so much with that.
It's sort of like everyone's like, oh, Riley, your snapback was crazy and you just must want to be God's special ones and da-da-da-da. And I was like very cognizant when I was losing all my baby weight because we know I'm a fitness girly and I work girl. I was up in that gym.
I know, you earned that body.
4 days.
You worked real hard for it, girl.
Yeah, 4 days before he popped out of my hoo-hoo, I was up in that gym and it was important to me.
It was good for you and the baby to do that, by the way.
Yeah, and that's another thing too, is that people were like, oh, you shouldn't be working out that hard when you're pregnant. I'm like, my doctor said that's fine.
Yes, as
My
long as your
trainer
doctor
says
clears
fine,
it, it's okay. For everyone that maybe isn't okay, but for the average healthy pregnant person, it's really good for you to exercise. So go you mama.
Yeah, for me it was good, but now I'm paying for it because he's so damn hyper, but it is what it is. But it was sort of like when I lost a lot of the weight, people were, I don't want to say they were shaming me, but there was a little bit of shade in that whole, oh, you're so lucky, you didn't get stretch marks. Side note, look, if you're predestined to get stretch marks, you're going to get them. If you're
genetic.
not, you're not.
Mm-hmm.
There's no cream that's going to help with that, friends.
Mm-hmm.
Don't buy that shit.
Yeah.
I mean, be oiled, but
it can help. It will definitely help with itching and everything. Yeah. And for in some cases, like it can help your stretch marks maybe not get worse or not be like darker or deeper. But for the most part, genetically, if you're going to get them, you're going to get them.
And side note, I have some now. Okay.
Likewise, the tiger stripes are earned.
I don't show every nook and cranny on Instagram. But that's the thing, is that just because I dabbled in modeling, I know how to pose, I know how, whatever. But you got to be kind of careful too when you are coming at people with that kind of comment, because whether way it is, like whether someone hasn't lost the weight or has lost the weight, I feel like it's a dangerous thing to be telling them that like they should or shouldn't be a certain thing, especially when you're going like with me through postpartum. I feel like correct me if I'm wrong, but there could be like psychological impact either way. No?
Yes, 100%. I mean, I generally sort of operate on the rule of thumb, we should never make comments about anybody's body. And this is similar in the sense of like when somebody says like, wow, you're so big, like, oh my gosh, you look like you're about to pop, or like, oh my gosh, you're already halfway, you have such a tiny little baby bump. Like sometimes women are a little dysphoric about their bumps, because even that, something as innate as having a baby bump when you're pregnant, we tend to even compare our baby bumps to other bumps, like being really big at the end, or wow, like this person was showing and popping so cute by 26 weeks. Why am I not really showing? Well, because pregnancy looks so different on so many different kinds of bodies, and we never know somebody's journey pre and postpartum, right? So in general, like rule of thumb, pregnancy or not, I just don't think it's cool to comment on somebody's body. But I think if we're going to say something, I like to use language like you look healthy, you look glowing, you look happy, things that are positive and more about your aura versus a specific of like how you look size wise. That's almost always risky.
Yeah, let's just not.
So risky.
So, but another thing somebody said to me once, and this is weird that this was a big debate on Facebook at one point, holding your bump. Somebody had an issue, not with my second son, Malin, who's 3, for those of you guys that don't know. My first son, Lyra, because it was my first pregnancy, and I like somebody got on me like, you're just showing it off. I'm like, okay, obviously whatever you're saying is about you and not me. But isn't it something where it's like a maternal instinct to just be protective of that?
Yes.
It's
I
not a
dealt
show
with
off
this
thing.
too. I dealt with this too. I had so many feelings about this with my first pregnancy, because there was some jokes in my friend group of being like, can ladies take a picture without holding their bump? Like, I feel like every pregnant person just like has to hold their stomach in every picture, even if the bump isn't showing yet. And one of the things I learned in my trainings for this, but two, just like experience, and you can probably relate to this, it's a whole ass person in there. Like, what do you mean? Should I not acknowledge them in the picture? Like, it's exciting for some people. And I realize everybody has a different journey in pregnancy, but for the most part, when the bump is there, I think it's kind of comforting for people to act like that person's there.
Right. It's almost like preparing you in a sense, because the first time around I wasn't prepared. No, I wasn't prepared either time. But I just think that innately that's what you do. And it's like, I wanted to go back to something about like bodies, even though we kind of moved on from that. Like, something I remember being very cognizant about that I was happy that I did is, I remember the first time I got to my goal baby weight, which I still have never talked about it. I don't give the number. Someone said to me, because I put the scale there, which I don't even like the scale thing. It's like about feeling strong, but I did. And I blocked out what the number was. And someone had said, I'm so grateful to you that you didn't post that out there, because I didn't want anybody to compare anything to me for anyone else. Because my size has ballooned up and down in between 30, 40 pounds throughout my life.
Like most women.
Yeah. I carry it a little different, and I know how to pose or whatever. But I think that if you, I'm going to roll my eyes so hard about this, you are one of the God's chosen ones, as they said, not that I present myself that way. I think it is important to maybe think about that a little bit in terms of talking about getting to your goals. Yeah. If somebody else, and if you care about this whole social media thing, which I think we should, if somebody else isn't there yet. I always, being a media personality and on a major market morning show at the time, I was really cognizant of that.
Yeah.
Because I don't think that it should be, like you said, it should be about aura. It shouldn't be about the size, the weight, how quick somebody gets it off. Because let's put it this way. I might have been the size I wanted to, but up here in my noggin, I was going crazy. So.
Right. And I think when somebody's commenting, right, we're commenting from our perceptive experience. So somebody sharing that feeling, how does it feel to be God's favorite, or whatever it is that they're saying?
Literally, I got that.
Yeah. Like, it's intended, I think, to be light, and in some cases good fun. Then of course, maybe you've been met with some not kind comments, or I've definitely had my fair share of both, especially since being a little bit more in this space. But I think the main thing is that people have a different frame of reference for comparison now, and it's given people a lot of permission to express opinion, right? We would not know, we're not supposed to be getting this much information about other people all the time.
No.
Like, this idea of being able to see what everybody's doing and how they look in every stage of their life, we have a platform that allows a subconscious comparison. So it's near impossible not to do that. What makes the difference, though, is this intention or this decision to comment on it. That's why I say, rule of thumb, we should just never comment on somebody's body. Right. But the comparative experience is a real thing. It's not even just with pregnancy and postpartum, but snapback culture is a thing because we've made it a thing. We've glorified women's bodies for centuries in media, on magazines, on TV. There's tabloids out there. I remember a recent interview with Kourtney Kardashian, right after she had her firstborn. She was on the cover of Us Weekly or In Touch magazine, and she was passing out at the beach running, trying to lose weight for this photo shoot. We've been doing this forever, and social media has amplified it.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I did feel a certain amount of pressure that I only put on myself. My wedding was 5 months within giving birth to my second son, and there was no damn way I was not fitting into that dress. Matter of fact, I was smaller than it. But it was for me, I will say this, though. I'll give myself that pat on the back. It wasn't about, I have to be this certain. I did want to fit in the dress because, damn it, I was not going to spend $600 to pull that in again. But I was just I just want to feel very strong. I want to feel very comfortable in my skin on my wedding day. I actually hit my goal after the wedding. I just wanted to feel beautiful, but I didn't want to put that pressure on this has to be a certain thing. People forget celebrities have dietitians, they have all of the best everything, they have all of the best coaches, and not everybody has access to that.
No.
Like,
but Riley, it's also just influencer culture. Like we are in such a society shift right now where there's online personalities that are really glorified. And I mean, I love it. I enjoy it. I soak it in as a consumer myself. It's not to knock the people putting in the work. It is vulnerable putting that type of content out there. But what happens is we're viewing this as a normalized platform and like how things should look. And, some people have nannies, some people have a cleaning service that comes through. Like we never really know somebody's particular circumstances. So the average human isn't living the same experience we see online. And so we have the platform to compare ourselves to other people. And then we wonder why we constantly are doubting ourselves or feeling anxious about our recovery postpartum.
It's a damn leap of joy.
100%.
We talked about this a little bit in part 1. If you guys haven't listened to it and you don't know where it is, please definitely DM me at Riley Tour and I'll send it to you. But we talked about how it's just like the whole picture of motherhood. It's ugly. It's beautiful and it's ugly and it's never the thing that you think it's going to be. And you don't have to have guilt in that at all. Talking about guilt, this just popped into my head and I wanted to see what your thoughts are, especially somebody that has like a actual like advice segment in Ask Riley on my podcast, and motherhood is always the thing that pops up. Unsolicited advice on motherhood on social media. What are your thoughts on that? I will let you give your professional opinion before
I mean, I have my
rant.
personal thought and then I have my professional thought, but for the sake of the podcast, I'm just going to chat like a human. Like she's just a mom and a human here. Okay. This is so annoying, right? So it is human nature and I think mom tribe nature to want to help. The problem is like everybody's circumstances and preferences are different. So if we're talking about challenges with sleep, you're going to get a slew of information about co-sleeping versus sleep training. If it's about baby-led weaning, breastfeeding versus formula or whatever it is, there's so many different opinions. And that's the beauty of motherhood and being a parent. You get to choose how you want to do it. It's literally what you want and what you think is best. So everybody's trajectory and journey is going to look really different. So I struggle with unsolicited advice because even though it's intended to be helpful, it's an influx of information and opinions, and it actually creates more stress for the mom. I had to set boundaries on my social media after my first and be like, you guys, sometimes I'm just sharing. I'm just sharing. And if I want help, I will literally say, hey guys, any tips or feedback for XYZ? And like, I have a small little community, so people were really cool with it and super helpful. And, but I know on bigger pages or, I know you have a fairly large following too. Your page is big. You probably get all sorts of comments and feedback unprovoked all the time.
This was one thing that I separated myself from Riley Couture versus Raquel Weeder as mama from jump with Lyric, because I take things with a grain of salt and I am a media personality, so I had to be careful about what I say and always mindful about the way I presented myself. A little bit less now that I'm not, represented by a big ass company that was pushing my paycheck. But for me, I live by the credo. If I didn't give birth to that kid, I have zero right to tell you how. Let me back up. If I didn't give birth, adopt, take care of, wipe their ass, feed them, I have zero room to be able to tell you any damn thing. Like people, that was the one full stop that I was like, no, don't bring that here. Like, he is my son. And I know that I've only been a mom for 8.5 years. I know there's wealths of women that know so much more than I do. But then, like, I have friends that have only been a mom for like 9 months and they're doing it. I was like, damn, I wish I would have done that. So
the research is always changing too.
Yeah.
Like things are improving and changing and our resources are always being updated. So even things 6 months ago in terms of like products on the market, things have been recalled or reintroduced, new versions, etc. We're always evolving in all aspects, not just like mom stuff.
That makes me kind of giggle. This is not funny, but it makes me kind of giggle about the recall stuff, because I've had moms. There was this one like rocker chair that was like my Bible when Lyric was little. And then when it came around to Malin, it was like, that was recalled because there's all these things happening. Obviously, once it's recalled, you're not. But I had moms being like, it worked for me. I'm still going to use it, which is fine. Do you? But I just think that, like, I'm open to people saying stuff as long as they come at it the right way. But I have been even more so recently. There's like a lot more closed off to the outside noises. I kind of felt like I can't be a person that gives advice and then not listen to it. But I always say, equate things to, this is how I can speak from my experience or what I would do if this was my experience. So instead of saying, this is what you should do, maybe just don't give unsolicited advice.
It's language and delivery at the end of the day. I've had so many people be like, hey, I know you didn't ask. I'm just suggesting maybe trying XYZ. I don't want to overstep, but thought maybe I could share an idea. Like, that's a super well-intended message. Like, I'm not ever going to be upset about that. But delivery matters. And I think online in the DMs, there's a lot of confidence and audacity out there. So be mindful. You just, postpartum and motherhood is sensitive. We're all mama bears in our own right.
I love you, Frand. Audacity is my favorite word. I love to throw that around because most of the time when you throw that at somebody that like is being that way, they're like, "What's audacity?" Look it up, boo.
Look it up. You. Google that one because a lot of you
right there at the dictionary. Like, hi, Audacity 101. So another thing that we didn't touch on in part 1 that I actually didn't really know was a thing, dysphoric milk ejection reflex.
Yes.
What the hell is this?
Okay, so I didn't know what this was either, but there's this feeling that a lot of women get when they're having a letdown, whether it be breastfeeding or pumping, and it's like a doomed, dark, sort of depressed feeling, and it's pretty short-lived. I would say it could be anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes. For everyone, it's different, but it's not usually a cause for concern, and it's not really anything to worry about. But for the average person that doesn't know that this exists, and just like for reference, this is, we call this DMER. We just use the acronym, the letters because it's a long ass name. But I had no idea what this was. And it doesn't happen to every mom, but there's a lot of moms that are like, I don't know, I just feel depressed when I'm pumping, or I feel depressed when I'm breastfeeding. It like goes away, but like just the feeling associated with even getting started, people start being overwhelmed with the idea of having to breastfeed because they're afraid of that sensation. So if you've ever had this before, one, you're super normal. It has to do with your hormone fluctuations and what happens with it's a really quick shift to help assist with your milk ejection. But yeah, it's a real thing, and it happens to so many women, and no one freaking talks about it.
Nobody talks about so damn much. Like, this is another thing that I've talked about on my podcast before after I had Mal, and I'm just bringing it up real quick because it's funny and a lot of people related to this. I always tell everyone that someday when Malin has a girlfriend and he wants to treat me like doo-doo, I'll be like, kid, my booty hole fell out of my butt to have you. Okay. It was like the nurse literally called me up and told me just to put a glove on and push it back in there. There's so many things. I won't go further than that. Friends like, what the hell?
Right? Oh, I mean, delivery can be many things.
It's festive. I'm glad I never have to do it again. That's another thing I wanted to chit chat with you about that I thought was interesting in terms of mom guilt and maternal mental health is the freaking, do you want another one? Why don't you try for a girl? You make such pretty, I wanted to. I didn't get and it almost felt like, because Marshall and I made pretty babies and I made a pretty baby before him, that it was just like, you have to have another one. And I always said, for me, 3, you're outnumbered and I don't want to do it. I don't think anybody should be that friend or that person or that troll on social media that's like, you should have another one. Because then for me, I was sort of like, should we? Should I have another one? Now
I'm like, so personal. It's so personal. I'm actually in this right now myself, and I have no problem sharing that. I've talked about it on some level with clients when it feels okay to self-disclose a little bit, but this is a real thing. This is, again, a reason why I don't think people should ever comment something like that, because what if somebody wanted a third baby, but they had an emergency hysterectomy, so they can't? Or what if they have some other, medical illness going on that's preventing them from trying? Sometimes people have unexplained infertility after having had 1 or 2 kids. So you just never know what somebody's going through. That's why these types of comments around conceiving, having babies, you want to tell me my babies are beautiful? I love it. I think they're beautiful too. But any type of comment that implies, are you making more? Should I have more? Just be wary and be careful, right? I know a lot of the time it's well-intended, but you never know what someone's going through. And I think on both sides of this, you can be completely done and assured of yourself that you don't want any more. And then you could get a lot of comments like this and it can be overwhelming, almost like start questioning yourself. Wait, do I want more? Or you can be in a phase where you're trying to decide and maybe you don't think that you have the mental health and the bandwidth for it, or financially you don't have the bandwidth for it and you're struggling with that. So I think private conversation around this with a trusted friend, a therapist, all of that is good and healthy and appropriate. But I would say unless you're besties with someone, family with a family member or somebody's therapist, and you know how they're going to receive a comment like that, it's just better left unsaid.
It was also too for me that it was like, some people know this now, but at the time, like, oh, I had another miscarriage that I didn't know was a thing. And it was rocking me because obviously we'd taken measures to make sure that didn't happen.
Right.
And it was like, then I started questioning, like, oh, should I have another one? Was that a sign to have another one? And it's just like, again, we kind of talked about this in the first part of this podcast, that it's like your postpartum can go for like 18 months.
Yes.
And I didn't realize when he was a year that it was still there. So it's like, mothers, we're rock stars, right? We're badasses. We're tough. We can get through anything. But then there's that feminine side to us that is like, damn, just leave me alone.
Yeah.
Please just let me be.
Let me live.
Because I think even now, 3.5, he's 3.5, 3.5 years later, it's like, I still suffer emotionally from a lot of those things. I'm not trying to make it all wet, but I think it's good for me to still realize I wasn't nuts. This was all still happening to me. And there's so many different avenues of mental health that I feel like that can still spill into later in life.
Well, because you're every age you've ever been at this point in your life. It all stays with you. You're still 4, 8, 12, 14, 17, 21. All those versions of you still exist. And so as your baby's growing, it's reflective of your internal and external experiences. And actually, we were talking about this before we started recording.
Look at you.
It's like a nice little segue into it. Yeah, I'm on your wavelength, girl. The trauma, right? Generational trauma, childhood wounds. And I think this word is a little overused, but for the sake of, just bringing it out on the surface, right? I want to say anything that you think has deeply and emotionally affected you in your past, if you have not dealt with it, it will show up when you're raising a child. And it looks very different for everyone. Maybe for someone, it's irritability and you're yelling a lot. For somebody else, maybe it's complete disconnect and dissociation. There is no one size fits all when it comes to trauma recovery, but we know raising children is a for sure way to surface your unhealed wounds. Raising 100%. A child and trying to break the chains of generational trauma is hands down one of the most difficult things a human being can experience in the therapeutic space.
Oh, absolutely. And I just for me, I know, and it makes me kind of sad to think about it because I know that I've tried to correct it and pivot. So many times I hear this, kids are resilient, and I want to choke people when they say that.
Yeah.
Because it's like, I don't have a lot of memories past, before the age of 5. And there was a lot of traumatic, and when I say traumatic, I mean text things that happened to me as a baby, as a young age, things that I've yet to discover if they really happened, but as my therapist says, they probably will come out at some point. But for me, raising sons and trying to always pivot and prevail, as I call it, in motherhood, that it's just like when I see myself recreating those wounds, because isn't it true there's something in there that children, they're kind of their formative years, or you're kind of done shaping that at 8, not done, but
a lot of the groundwork has been laid, and of course we can improve and support and change and foster healthy growth. But,
and I think that no matter what stage, like you said, I love that, you're only this whatever age you're at, you can pivot and rectify it as much as possible. Because with my mother, I love her, but she's Puerto Rican Catholic Latina, you didn't talk about that when she was when her mother was her age. There was very little information about it all, and my mom's very much well, it's in the past, whatever, I can't do anything about it now. And I think since we're talking about maternal mental health, it's really important, and maybe even with fathers too, right? It's very important to recognize that you always have the chance to change that fork in the road, to explore what your traumas are, really sit with them and think about well, yeah, my kid could be just resilient. And I know plenty of people that are, going through these traumas or have gone through these traumas and they were fine. But I'm but are they really though?
They're presenting fine. We all present as our best versions. Like,
Mhm.
and I've never worked, I'll tell you, in the thousands of people I've worked with and over the span of my career, I've never met a parent that intended with purpose to harm their child. Has harm occurred? Yes. And I've dealt, unfortunately, with some really difficult cases that have even gone through the court and family reunification post separation and all of that. And I'm saying this to you, and I want everyone to kind of take this into account. We're all always doing the best that we can. So even if you have like friction with, and this doesn't excuse abuse, right? And I want to preface that, but even if you have friction with your own parents, right? I think sometimes stepping back and acknowledging the resources that they had available to them, the way that they were spoken to, or the ways that their families were not there for them, what
Mhm.
was untreated and unworked through showed up in how they raised you. And
Mhm.
now you're carrying that in your backpack. And the only way this changes is if you change it, right? We can make excuses and blame other people and say, well, my mom did this, my dad did that, I'm no contact with this person. And all of those things are a valid experience and should be talked through. That's literally what I do. The problem, though, is until we're ready to look in the mirror and do that, those wounds show up. And they
Mhm.
show up not just for moms, they show up for dads too.
Yeah. It's just, there's been many times, like, there's been things that I haven't handled with my son Lyric. He's older or whatever, and I'll stop down. And I was talking to my therapist about this, and I was just like, my biggest thing with Lyric is I will apologize. Two things. I'll
Mm-hmm.
apologize, and immediately he must be like, "It's okay, mommy." I'll be like, "No, it's actually not.
Mm-hmm.
I'm telling you right now that was not appropriate for mommy to do that."
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing I always try to do is empower him to give him the choice to forgive me.
Mm-hmm.
When you're ready to forgive mommy, and he does it like 5 seconds later, and it's so sweet, but I always want to be cognizant of the fact that, like, it's our responsibility with these little humans to always and constantly better ourselves.
Yeah.
It's not you just give birth to them and they love you forever and that's it. I'm sitting here talking like I'm the damn therapist.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, true or no, that like it's always our responsibility to like shape that path, not just for them, but for ourselves too.
Yeah. I mean, I think as parents, it's our responsibility to manage our own feelings is the truth,
Mhm.
right? Kids don't have the prefrontal cortex development and like executive functioning. Like I know these are maybe bigger words if you don't have actual context for them, but what I mean is like being able to think through consequences and being able to make wise choices, right? We don't develop that really all the way until we're 25. Really
Oof.
let that sink in.
Lord have
Okay.
mercy.
So these are
Ugh.
tiny humans with big feelings, and we're overwhelmed. We don't live in a culture that is supportive of mothers and families. And so when you have a rough day and you pop off on your kids, one, that doesn't feel good. Two, it's hard to look in the mirror and say, I own this. I'm, going to do the work, the necessary work to, connect with my child. And I'm not an expert in this space. PS, like I hold space for moms, but as it pertains to like raising little ones, not
Mhm.
really my niche, but I know enough to know when I'm working with an adult and I'm working with a mom, right? The first step is acknowledging your own unhealed wounds and finding ways to connect healthily and take responsibility with your kids. How can we expect our kids to grow up and say, I'm sorry, if we're unwilling to say, I'm sorry?
Mhm.
Right. And these
Yeah.
are people that are going to be in relationships. I have two boys, and I think about that all the time. Like, I have no idea with whom they'll end up with. Right. But I hope whoever it is feels loved. I know. Me too. You
Father,
have
Son,
two
Holy
boys too.
Spirit,
I
like, oh
forget
my God.
we're boy moms, but like, I
Yeah.
think about this all the time. And raising good, responsible, respectful humans with whomever they end up with, I want them to be able to regulate their feelings and not only feel comfortable showing anger. That
Mhm.
starts with us in the home. And I want them to also be able to say, I'm sorry, and acknowledge their shortcomings. Women tend to burden themselves more with this just naturally.
Mhm.
But I think raising good men is part of that challenge. So
Totally.
cheers to being a boy mom.
Yes. Cheers, ma'am. Even though I wanted a girl so damn bad I could taste it, I'm glad I didn't get one
Yeah.
because good God.
Yeah.
Like, good God. But it's just like, I so appreciate that, because, that's not your expertise per se, but we're all just talking as moms as well. And I
Yeah.
think it's
Yeah.
just, I take great responsibility, for my shortcomings as a mom and for the way that I want to grow as a mom. I
Hmm.
think that's a big important thing to say too. I'm not a veteran mom. Like I said, it's under a decade that I've been that. But I think my biggest mission as a mom is to do the damn best I can
Yeah.
first, but
Hmm.
also taking responsibility for the ways and times that I didn't.
Hmm.
Because, we've talked about, maternal mental health in terms of like, conception to afterwards. But I think it's cool that we've kind of dove into that little space just as moms and friends to say that like it's all a shit show. It really just is.
And
But
it's an
you know,
ongoing journey. Like we're never finished.
no, never.
You're
Like a
never
lot of times,
finished.
my mom used to tell me, "You're an adult." I was like, "Oh, okay, because I'm 18 years old. You're just done."
Yeah. Yeah.
No, like, I mean, you
I've
definitely.
never told my mom this, so maybe she'll be listening to
Oh
this.
God,
But every time she tells me I'm a good mom, it's like a moment of healing I didn't know I needed.
yeah.
Because you know what? Even though I'm 35, there's still a little bit. There's a part inside me that's a little kid wanting them to be proud of me, wanting them to approve of me, and I'm fully independent and I do all these things, but her words of affirmation and acknowledgement still means something. And I'm
Mhm.
fully grown, right? I
Right.
carry that with me. So someday when my kids are older, I'm trying to remember the value and letting them know I'm proud of them. Saying out loud when I think they've done something well. So many times, and it's not even just with our kids, right? It's like with people, like we
Mhm.
should tell people the things that we think about them in a good
100%.
way, right? As I'm saying, don't comment on someone's body.
I
Like
mean,
realistically, if it's something that is meaningful and it's about a way they contribute healthily to your life, especially with our kids, modeling that and continuing to do that as they get older, it's so impactful.
yeah. I mean, it's all about intentions. You know me and my intentions and all those things. It's just,
Yes.
I my therapist one time when I was like, crying to her, like, I'm not being a good mom right now. She's like, Riley, you're going through a lot.
Hmm.
And she's just like, are they fed?
Hmm.
Yes. Do they have a nice house, with that's safe, that's not with cockroaches crawling all over the walls?
Hmm.
Yes. Have you told him you loved him today? Yes. Have you done your best? Yes.
Yes.
You good.
You're good. You're not going to
Obviously,
have a perfect day every day.
yeah, like obviously when you come up for air, you want to do more than just the basics. But I think that just I hear you in that. Whenever somebody tells me like you're a really good mom, the fact that I self-deprecate so far down in that
Hmm.
area means I'm trying my damnedest to be a good
What,
mom.
yeah, mom, if you care, you're 8 steps ahead from somebody that doesn't care. And I
Amen.
know that's not enough, right? You and I, when we've talked in private about this too, it's like always wanting more, always wanting to do more. I think this is a really normal thing in the mom space too. And it even loops back into the social media conversation we've had. We have a frame of reference that compares our shortcomings to other people, and we don't mean to do it. We just do.
Hmm.
So we have to limit. I tell all of my freshly postpartum moms to be careful on the internet. I tell my pregnant moms to be even more careful on the internet. The algorithm does not know what you're sensitive to. It's just going to feed you content. So when you're scrolling through and you're looking at these things, you're going to be worried about things you wouldn't otherwise be worried about. I remember being freshly postpartum with Austin and being like, how are these people out to eat at a restaurant with their baby? My
Oh my
son
God, I
had severe
know.
acid reflux and screamed constantly. Like we couldn't dare dream of going to a
Oh my
restaurant
God.
with him.
And what was funny is I had that same experience, not the opposite of it. Like it was cold outside in Georgia. So it's not like I was in Wisconsin, damn it. And
Mm-hmm.
Lyric was like, I don't know, 6 weeks old. And with Malin, I was completely paranoid about this the other way around. We went to Ross. My mom had come in. That's what my mom does. She likes to shop. And we had him bundled up. And so he's like, oh my God, I wouldn't have him out that early. And I was like, I
Mm-hmm.
never, like, my mom wasn't exactly like the ushy gushy hands on
Yeah.
mom. So it was like I didn't have a model for that. And then I was like, oh God. Then I didn't go anywhere for like 4 months.
Mm-hmm.
And I was a single mom. Like I didn't
Yeah.
have interaction with anybody. Ugh. God,
I
we could
know.
go
I
so
know.
many rounds with this.
There's so much looped into it, but I think that it even loops back to part one, being angry at the things we didn't know and feeling like people were dishonest. And in general, I still think on the day to day in conversation, we're a little dishonest sometimes about how hard it is because we want to show and say the nice thing. And Instagram, Facebook, all of it is kind of a highlight reel, right? We show our high points. I think we're doing a little bit better at being forthcoming. There's a lot of content out there that does, on some level, show the truths of how challenging this can be. But I also caution pregnant women and postpartum women with that. The
Mm-hmm.
reason I say that though is because somebody's postpartum depressive episode and sharing their challenges with what's going on can be really healing to the right community
Mm-hmm.
and create a lot of fear in the wrong community. So
100%.
social media is a double-edged sword. We have to be really careful, and your unique experience is unique to you. But that doesn't mean we don't share and talk about it as long as we're being mindful, right? That this is not a one size fits all. And it looks different for different people, and that's okay. But your story and the things that you've been through can be healing to other people. There's really good platforms out there. And I don't know if there's a way we can maybe share this with your followers. And actually, if anybody listening wants some referenced information for free support groups online, like
100%.
please DM me.
Yes.
Please do. I will share with you some ways to get into some support groups for moms. There's also support groups for dads out there. But being able to talk to other people that are in similar situations, that's usually the safest way to explore some of these feelings, not comparing your life to someone online.
Yes, community is like 100%. And like, I think we need more rounds of this, because I'm just literally sitting here thinking of all these other mom things.
There's so many things.
Like maybe next time, maybe we do a part 3, because I even wanted to talk about like mom fashion and when I did a boudoir shoot after I had my son.
The worst clothing options for breastfeeding moms in the world. Like maternity fashion, trash.
Yes.
Breastfeeding clothes, trash. That's something. Yes.
And I even have some thoughts. So I want to do a part 3. If you're down, we can get to that.
Yeah,
y'all
let's
don't be pressuring us for it. I love that you want to hear it. But before I let you go, I definitely have to have you give everyone a way that they can get a hold of you, either professionally or just to check out your social media space. So let's give those out right now.
Yeah. So on my Instagram, I'm My Therapy Fran, all one word. But if you're looking into therapy, just know I'm licensed in Virginia and DC only. And you can search me on the psychologytoday.com website by my first and last name, Frances Rosa.
I love you, love you, love you. And everybody, thank you for listening. And again, please DM me if you have ideas and things that you want to talk about in this space, because it's so damn wide. And even if it's not from like a psychological standpoint, you just want to hear us chit chat about mom stuff.
Yeah, mom stuff. We love it.
Let's do it. But I love you guys so much. And thank you for listening.
Thank you, Riley. Thanks, everyone.